The rain wasn't falling so much as it was being hurled against the windshield of Elias Thorne's luxury sedan. A bruised twilight sky had given way to an absolute ink-pot blackness, broken only by the car's own high beams that seemed to push against the gloom for mere feet before being swallowed whole. The GPS had lost its signal 10 miles back, and the sleek, silent navigation system now displayed only a polite, useless grid. Elias, a man who built a 9-figure fortune on predictable algorithms and risk assessment models, felt a prickling vulnerability. His world was one of control: climate-controlled offices, controlled market fluctuations, controlled outcomes. This storm was a wild variable. A sharp crack of lightning, close enough to bleach the landscape bone white for a second, and the car's smooth electric purr became a choking death rattle, then silence. It coasted to a halt on the gravel shoulder of a country road so dark it felt like velvet. Elias sat in the sudden, shocking quiet, punctuated only by the drumming rage of the rain on the roof and the slow swish-swish of the wipers. He smelled his own frustration, the expensive, clean scent of the car's leather upholstery now undercut with a thread of damp anxiety. No signal. The charger port was dead, the screen dark. He was a satellite untethered. Then, through the sheeting water on the passenger window, a single diffuse point of light glowed in the distance, a farmhouse porch light, a tiny, hazy sun in the liquid night. It was the only sign of life for miles. Decision made. With a sigh that fogged the glass, he pulled his cashmere coat over his head, a pitiful shield, and pushed the door open into the storm's embrace. The sprint was 100 yards of cold, shocking baptism. Rain needled his scalp, water instantly soaked his tailored trousers to the knee, and his Italian loafers slipped and skidded on the mud-greased gravel. By the time he stumbled onto the porch, a wide, covered space holding a pair of worn rocking chairs and a terracotta pot of dormant geraniums, he was breathless and dripping like a drowned cat. The farmer who answered the door was named Walter, though Elias wouldn't learn that for a few minutes. He was maybe 70, lean and ropey, wearing faded denim overalls over a red flannel shirt. His face was a road map of sun and kindness. His hands, resting on the doorframe, were like weathered oak, broad and capable. He took in the spectacle of the shivering, impeccably dressed man without a flicker of surprise. "Car trouble?" he asked, his voice a low, steady rumble that somehow carried over the rain. "Storm's knocked a tree onto the lines down the valley. Phone's out, but you're welcome to wait it out in here. Can't have you catching your death." And when Elias entered, he saw not a rustic curiosity or a stage set for rural simplicity, but a living, breathing universe in motion. The warmth hit him first, a physical wall of it, carrying a tapestry of scents that made his empty stomach clench. Yeasty, golden bread cooling on a checked cloth on the counter, the sharp, rich tang of stewed tomatoes and herbs from a large pot on the stove, the underlying clean notes of wood smoke from the fireplace, and lemon-scented laundry from a basket mounded with towels. It was the smell of deep care, of a space that was not just occupied, but tended. In the heart of this orchestrated bustle stood Walter's wife, May. She was stirring the large pot, her movements a fluid, practiced dance. A streak of flour adorned her cheek like a warrior's mark. "Set another plate, would you, Walt?" she said without looking up from her stirring, as if a soaked stranger in a $5,000 suit was a scheduled, if slightly damp, dinner guest. But it was the rest of the scene that held Elias utterly captive, making him forget the chill in his bones. In the large, scarred oak cables pool of buttery light from an overhead lamp sat 3 generations, woven together in the quiet hustle of an ordinary evening. Walter and May's daughter, Anya, sat with her own young daughter, Lily, nestled against her side. Anya, her hair in a messy but practical bun, was patiently helping Lily with a spelling worksheet. "Remember, sweet pea," Anya murmured, her voice a soft melody, "the I before E except after your night of planting seeds. It was a mnemonic from her own childhood, repurposed. Lily, about 7, with 2 missing front teeth and a smudge of pencil lead on her chin, smelled overwhelmingly of crayons and the strawberry shampoo from her earlier bath. Her small brow was furrowed with profound concentration. Anya's teenage son, Leo, was mostly absorbed in his phone, a beacon of modernity in the timeless room. But every so often, without being asked or looking up from the screen, he'd unfold his long limbs, get up to refill his grandmother's water glass from the pitcher on the counter, or take the wooden spoon from her hand to stir the simmering pot for a few minutes when her arthritis-stiffened fingers needed a rest. His kindness was quiet, automatic, woven into the fabric of his being. "Sit, dry off," Walter said, pulling out a sturdy, ladder-back chair for Elias. "Stew's about ready. Maize, beef, and barley. It'll put the fire back in you." Elias, a man fluent in the language of mergers and market forecasts, found himself tongue-tied. He was used to transactional conversations, to power lunches where every word had a calculated weight. This unasked-for sanctuary disarmed him completely. As he settled into the chair, its wood worn smooth by decades of similar backsides, he fumbled for his wallet. "Please, let me compensate you for the inconvenience, for the meal," he said, the words feeling brittle and out of place. May simply waved her wooden spoon in his direction, a gentle but absolute dismissal. "Nonsense. The stew's already made, the bread's already baked. Every soul needs feeding in a storm. That's just arithmetic." Her smile was in her eyes. The meal commenced. It was a symphony of everyday sounds that, to Elias's newly attuned ears, felt sacred. The deep, satisfying thunk of the stew pot placed on a woven trivet in the center of the table, the soft clink of spoons against thick, mismatched ceramic bowls, one with a blue stripe, another with a chipped rim, the gentle tear and rustle of the warm bread being passed, hand to hand, each person pulling off a piece before sending it on. The warm, savory steam that rose from his bowl held a complexity no 5-star reduction sauce had ever achieved. The earthy depth of slow-cooked beef, the sweet give of carrots, the humble fortitude of potatoes and barley. It tasted of patience, of foresight, of nourishment in its truest sense. Conversation flowed around him like a gentle, meandering river. They spoke of the recalcitrant tractor due for a repair, of the way the old barn cat had presented them with a field mouse earlier. Her idea of paying rent, Walter grumbled, but his eyes twinkled. Lily, emboldened by the presence of a new audience, detailed her upcoming school play where she was to be a very serious ladybug with 6 precise spots. Anya shared a funny story about a miscommunication at the local feed store. They asked Elias about his journey, not his job. "Heading far?" Walter asked. "Just business in the city," Elias replied, and the phrase sounded hollow even to him against the solidity of tractor repairs and ladybug costumes. After dinner, no one dispersed to separate screens or solitary pursuits. This was the second act, just as important as the first. Lily scampered to a cupboard and brought out a worn, taped-at-the-corners board game. Leo, to Elias's surprise, put his phone face down on the sideboard without a prompt and began clearing the table, stacking dishes with a quiet efficiency. May settled into her well-upholstered armchair by the hearth with a soft sigh of relief, and Walter, after loading the dishwasher, handed her a steaming mug of tea, 2 sugars, no spoon, he knew by heart, before joining the game at the table. Elias watched from his seat by the fire, a strange, expanding ache in his chest. It wasn't envy exactly, it was a profound, humbling recognition. He saw the economy of care operating in real time, a currency far more stable than any on Wall Street. The small, unspoken kindnesses, the way Anya, while discussing Lily's homework, reached over and absently tucked a loose thread on the cuff of Walter's flannel shirt. The way Walter, passing May's chair to fetch more firewood, let his broad, calloused hand rest on her shoulder for a sustained second, a silent question and affirmation all in one. The way Lily, upon losing the board game spectacularly, was consoled not by false victory or a new toy, but by Leo pulling her into a brief one-armed hug and the collective warm laughter of her family that held no mockery, only shared amusement. This was the true wealth. This was the resilient, interconnected web that held fast against all storms, literal and metaphorical. His own life, in his silent, pristine penthouse with its breathtaking view of a city of strangers, felt achingly arid in comparison. He had acquisitions, not connections, appointments, not rituals. Outside, the rain softened from a fury to a whisper, then to a distant dripping melody from the gutters. A soft ping came from a charger on the counter. The phones had come back to life. Elias's roadside assistance was summoned, a tow truck an hour out. As he prepared to leave, the borrowed dry socks feeling comforting on his feet, he struggled to find words adequate to the gift he'd been given. He stood in the doorway, the warm light at his back, facing Walter. I can't thank you enough for the shelter, the meal, everything." He gestured weakly back into the glowing room, where May was now reading a story to Lily on the sofa, and Anya and Leo were debating the best way to fix a fence post. Walter looked at him, those calm eyes seeing perhaps more than Elias wanted to show. In that moment, the titles of millionaire and farmer dissolved completely. It was Elias who was the supplicant, who had received alms of immeasurable value. "It was nothing," Walter said, his voice quiet but firm. "Just Tuesday." From the depths of the living room, Lily's voice piped up, clear and bright. "Bye, Mr. Elias. Drive safe." It was a bell of pure, unguarded care, a sound that lodged itself in his heart. Elias stepped back into the night. The air was clean and cold, smelling of wet earth and renewed promise. His car would be fixed. Tomorrow he would be back in his world of spreadsheets, video conferences, and strategic decisions. But he carried something new with him, a warmth anchored against any future cold, a light for any coming darkness. He started the rental car the tow truck driver had brought, a mundane, practical solution. As he drove away, he kept looking in the rearview mirror. The porch light of the farmhouse didn't diminish in importance as the distance grew. It grew smaller, yes, a single pinprick in the vast, receding dark, but it remained a fixed, golden point, a beacon, not just of shelter, but of a deeper, universal truth he now understood in his bones, that our greatest fortunes aren't amassed in isolation, but are built, bowl by nourishing bowl, kindness by automatic kindness, story by shared story, in the humble, magnificent, and resilient hustle of belonging. It was a belonging he had witnessed, and in witnessing had begun, just a little, to reclaim.